Hey guys, my name is Marley. I hope you guys are doing well, and today we are going to be fan casting some of your and my favorite books. So I did this once before on my channel. It's pretty fun to do. I think all of us are kind of fan casting characters in our heads as we read, thinking about the actors that we know and love. I know I certainly do that, and I also have a book club with my friends where whenever we read a book, we fan cast it and sort of discuss who we pictured in each role. So I just compiled a bunch of the fan casting ideas that I've gotten over the last few months, and I'm going to share them with you, and you can let me know if you agree or disagree. So the first book I'm going to cast is Written in the Stars by Alexandra Bellefleur. This is a female-female romance book about these two characters, Elle and Darcy. They end up going on like this really bad date and not liking each other, not hitting it off, but then they both kind of have ulterior motives for wanting to fake date each other, which they end up doing. And so it's a really fun kind of grumpy sunshine fake dating romance book. So as for the casting, Elle is our main character, and she is the sweeter, more sunshine one of the two. She is very into astrology. I think her job was like writing articles about astrology or something like that, being like an astrology influencer kind of thing. And so I picture her to be very like blonde, bubbly, cute. And for that, I was going to cast Elizabeth Lale. She is from You, and then I've also seen her in Once Upon a Time, where she played Anna. And if you guys know Anna from Frozen, obviously, she's very like optimistic, peppy, that kind of thing. So I know that she can play that kind of character, and I think she would be perfect for this role. Then for her counterpart, Darcy, I'm pretty sure she must have had red hair because I casted like a redhead actress for this. She is like the grumpier one, the more serious one. She has like a serious job, doesn't believe in astrology, that kind of thing. So for that, I was picturing Madeleine Pesch from Riverdale. I know that she can play like a fiery, kind of grumpy character, as Cheryl in Riverdale is like a bully at the beginning of the show, and she still kind of has that edge to her. She also plays a gay character on Riverdale as well, so clearly she could portray a female-female romance in this as well. So that's what I'm thinking for the first one. Next we have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which actually just got announced that it's getting a movie adaptation, and everyone is pissed because it should have been a limited series, like a series instead of a movie, and I 100% agree with that. Like, Daisy Jones is getting a series. Why wouldn't Evelyn Hugo also get a series? I feel like it deserves a series even more than Daisy Jones, so we'll see how that goes. But as for the casting, I definitely think Evelyn Hugo could be played by Ana de Armas. I've seen other people mention her as well, and she's kind of like the immediate person I think of, as she is Hispanic, which Evelyn Hugo is. But if you guys don't know, Evelyn decides to whitewash herself essentially and go as white passing so that she can make it in Hollywood, and I think Anna could pull that off. If you guys don't know the book, actually, I'm not even going to describe the plot of the book because everyone knows it. As for Celia St. James, which is the second largest female role probably in the book, I have to look at this name honestly to say it. I think I would cast Hannah Vander Westhuizen. She is a very stunning blonde actress, as Celia should be. She is in the show Wings. Is that Wings? Wait, the Winx Club show on Netflix. That's how I know her. She can be a little snooty, a little rude, but then also like I think she could pull off being like a stunning like 50s, 60s actress. The only other character I casted for this is Harry. I think that's what her name was. Evelyn's like closest friend and one of her husbands. I was thinking for him David Coruscant, however you say that. I saw him in the show Hollywood, which is like an old-timey Hollywood Netflix show, so I could definitely just see him in that era. That's kind of the person I immediately thought of, I think, because I'm used to seeing him in old Hollywood. That's what that show is all about. But he's like a classically good-looking guy that I think could be charming enough in everything to be Harry. Then we have The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I actually casted a lot of characters for this, as this was a part of my book club, so I'm gonna try and go through it quickly. This book is a horror book about this book club of like middle-aged women, middle-aged moms, who end up figuring out that this man that moved to their town is a vampire terrorizing their town, and it's up to them to stop him. Really good book. Really disgusting book. For the main character, Patricia, I was thinking Amy Adams. I feel like she is like the quintessential lead character in a book like this, or movie, whatever. I feel like you can really root for her. I feel like we've seen her play like vulnerable, we've seen her play strong. I just feel like she would be a great lead for this type of thing. Then we have Grace, who I think was like blonde, kind of like the leader of the group a little bit, and I was gonna say Samantha Applegate for this. I feel like she would have that, again, strength, that attitude. This was a very obvious casting choice for Grace. Then for Mrs. Green, she was, I think, the housekeeper for Patricia. She is a black woman, and she is a part of the town that's really getting terrorized by the vampire. I think a very strong woman that could play this part would be Viola Davis. I love her. She's such a queen. I feel like she could totally do great in this role, of course, as she is in everything. Then for Kitty, I went with Melissa McCarthy. It's hard for me to remember all these characters because there's so many, but I think she was more of like the comedic relief of the group, if I can remember correctly, so I think that's why I chose her. And then for James, the infamous vampire villainous character, I thought Gerard Butler. I feel like he could come across as like, oh, he's good looking, manly, whatever, but then he could also play like an evil vampire for sure. Like, we've seen him play villains. He definitely is a scary man. Speaking of men, for Carter, Patricia's husband, who sucks for different reasons, I went with Matt Damon. I feel like he has that clean look. Like, he would definitely be like the mean, secretly like disrespectful husband, you know what I mean? He just could play that. Again, we've seen him play villains. For Slick, I went with Jennifer Garner. I'm trying to remember Slick. I think she was maybe more of like the typical weaker character, and I just feel like Jennifer Garner is like such a like kind person. Like, she always just plays these really like nice, maybe like silly characters a lot of the time, so I felt like she could be Slick. And then last, for Mary Helen, I went with Jennifer Jason Leigh. I think Mary Helen was maybe a little bit like of a harder personality, and so I just pictured this woman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, who I've seen in a lot of different roles. She's a very like dynamic actress. Okay, moving on, we have the Bromance Book Club. I didn't like this book, to be transparent. It really wasn't my thing, but I know a lot of people do. This is about a book club of men who basically read romance books in order to get advice on how they should deal with their relationship problems. It's a really cute idea, but I just didn't really like the execution of this book. As for the main lead, Gavin, he was like a baseball player. I pictured him to be very fit, as we're seeing his point of view and Thea's, and Thea always describes him as like very hot. He's an athlete, you know, good looking, but still pretty young. So I went with, he played Jason in Pretty Little Liars, and I just thought the tan, like blonde, he can have like a stubbly look, like that's definitely what I pictured as like a hot baseball player kind of vibe. Then for Thea, the main character, honestly, she wasn't giving me a lot in this book, so I really just pictured like a plain brunette woman. I feel like a lot of times that's just how I picture the heroines in romances. I think because a lot of the times it is supposed to be like a self-insert kind of thing. So I went with Maud Apatow. She's cute, she's pretty. We know she can do kind of like a fun thing, as we saw in the last season of Euphoria, where she had a bigger role and like more of a comedic role, I guess. So that's what I pictured for Thea. Then for Liz, which was Thea's younger sister, I remember her being described as blonde, and I think she was like in college and kind of more of the spunkier one. So I went with Catherine Newton, who I've seen in a few things. I think she normally plays characters with more of like an attitude, and I think she is around that like college age. Like, she can definitely keep playing a college character for a little while longer. Then for Dell, which is Gavin's best friend and a fellow baseball player, I believe, I pictured Dev Patel. I think that was clearly based on the fact that his name was Dell, and then I just pictured Dev, like one letter off. Not really any explanation for this, but I love Dev Patel, and I think he could play at like any role basically. So sorry if the angle changed, just did a little pause. Next up, I did Mac, who was a fellow member of the Bromance Book Club. I pictured as more of like the typical alpha male, very big, muscular, blonde, very bro-y, you know what I mean? So for this, I think the perfect fit was Alexander Ludwig. He was like Cato in Hunger Games, but he's definitely grown up since then. I know he's very beefy, just a typical like tough guy that I was picturing, but then he also is like very silly, don't get me wrong. He's a very like silly comedic character as well. So hopefully Alexander could pull that off. I feel like I haven't seen him in a comedic role myself, but I'm sure he could do it. Then I did People We Meet on Vacation, which I actually should hold up the books if I have them. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. For this, I casted Poppy and Alex, the two main leads. For Poppy, I know on the cover she's blonde and maybe she's supposed to be blonde, but I pictured Zoe Deutsch. She is such a pretty, cute actress. I really like her, and I feel like I've seen her play a lot of like comedic, preppy kind of roles, like being very optimistic and stuff, which I think fits Poppy. Like she is more of the outgoing one in the group. And then for Alex, I pictured Logan Lerman. Alex, it was more of like the nerdy, quieter one, and I feel like Logan Lerman could definitely pull that off, like put some glasses on him, and I feel like he would be the perfect Alex, like just this very nice male love interest that I think we all love and adored. And if I didn't say the premise of this book, it's because I don't have to, because everyone has read this. Then I did The Invisible Life of Addie Larue by V.E. Schwab. This is a like adult fantasy book, light on the fantasy, but still there, about this girl named Addie Larue who gets cursed when she makes a deal with the devil where she lives forever, but no one can remember her. Great book, very beautiful. So for Addie, she is like a young girl, I think early 20s. I pictured her brunette. She has freckles, pretty girl. I pictured for this Danielle Rose Russell. I get a lot of my casting inspiration from the show Legacies that I watch, as you'll see, but she plays the lead in this, and again, she kind of fits for that like typical brunette main character that we always tend to see. I actually really like this actress. I think she's really pretty, and she definitely can play that like spunkiness and carry like a lead role and like a love triangle kind of vibe like she does in Legacies. Then for Henry, our other main character in this book, who you get introduced to and is the only one that remembers Addie, and so he has a bit of romance with her. He works at a bookstore. He's in his like later 20s, and he's described as having like dark hair, green eyes, cute, but a little bit more, I guess, on the nerdy-ish side. These kind of go together though. Him and then Luke is the other character who is described to look very similar to Henry. They both have the sort of that same look, but Luke is obviously like darker and meaner than Henry, who's more sweet. So these could kind of go interchangeably, but I pictured Harry Styles as Henry. Hear me out. What do you guys think? Like, I think he could definitely play that role. And then Timothée Chalamet as Luke. I love Timothée Chalamet, and I feel like I would love to see him play a villainous role. I don't think he actually has played some kind of gray area, not the best characters, and so I would love to see him as Luke, the more like dark, mysterious one, and I think Harry would be good as Henry, playing like the softer guy and the more like artsy guy, you know? Definitely looking forward to seeing more of Harry Styles' acting roles. Next up, we have The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. So the main character in this is Jess, and she is a single mother, and she ends up getting involved in this like dating service that matches you up with your soulmate, and she ends up getting matched with, of course, the creator of the app. And because this is a huge PR thing, since it's a new technology coming out, they decide to kind of fake date, kind of put the relationship into the public to get press for the app, and then they end up paying her because she needs money. I didn't love this romance, but I know a lot of people do. For Jess, I pictured Jennifer Lawrence. I feel like Jennifer is like the correct age to play Jess. She could do the sort of like humor that would be needed for a sort of rom-com, and then she could also give that dramatic performance that you would also need, because there is quite a bit of angst in this surrounding Jess's mother, who is a drug addict and like a terrible mother, and then also just with her, like herself being a mother, dealing with being a single mother. How many times am I going to say mother? For River, who is the love interest slash scientist behind creating this app, honestly, very bland character. He was probably the worst part of the book. Like, his character was not very interesting, but he was described to be Hispanic in terms of like his looks. I think he was like later 30s, if I'm remembering correctly. I went with Santiago Cabrera. I've known him from a few different things, such as Merlin, but I feel like he was one of the only people I thought could fit this role, and he does play pretty like sweet characters I've never really seen him give too much personality. So I feel like he would fit River. Then for the best character in this book, we had Fizzy, which was Jess's best friend, and she was like a romance novel writer. She was really, really funny, a really great character. I've said before, I wish she was the main character sometimes, but she would be Ashley Park, who I know predominantly from Emily in Paris. I just feel like she already plays Fizzy essentially in Emily in Paris, which is being the like fun sidekick to the main character, and she fit the look that Fizzy had as well. So honestly, perfect casting right there. Then for the final thing I'm going to cast, it is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This is a book about a woman who gets out of prison and is trying to reconnect with her daughter, or not even reconnect, but meet her daughter as she gave birth in prison and has never actually known her daughter. But everyone that has been raising her daughter does not want her involved due to the things that led to her being in prison for. If you get what I mean. So our main character, Kenna, the young single mother, I pictured as Florence Pugh. She is an actress that is really blowing up lately, and she is the correct age. She's about 25, so perfect age, and I know that she can play very emotional roles as I have seen her play in the past. She also has sort of that dark sarcasm to her, which I think would fit Kenna due to like what she's been through. Like there's a lot of darkness there. Then for Ledger, which is the main love interest in this book, he owns a bar that Kenna frequents and then ends up working at. I pictured someone like Nathan Parsons. He's described as like an ex-football player, so he should be pretty like buff, and then he also has like a beard. That's like the main thing I remember of him, having like a scruffy beard, like typical bartender. This is an actor I've seen in the originals playing like a werewolf, so he definitely has the scruffiness down, and yeah, I think he could pull off that role. Then we have Roman, who is another guy that works at the bar. He's described as being a young African-American guy who also is an ex-football player. Again, we have the show Legacies coming in clutch, and I pictured Peyton Alex Smith to be this role. He was honestly a very likable character on Legacies, and Roman was like one of the most likable characters of this show. I feel like he's the right age, the right look. Then we have Diem, which is the young daughter. I think she's about 5 years old in the book, and one of the only child actors that I've seen recently was Mila Jones. She was in the last season of Supergirl. She played this little alien kid. I feel like I'm not familiar with too many child actresses, but she was really, really cute in that show, so I feel like she could pull it off. And then finally for the character Scotty, which is the father of Diem and the like ex-love interest of Kenna. We only really see him in flashbacks, so I pictured him to be quite young, like younger than Kenna is now. So I pictured something like Leo Howard, kind of like a typical white boy look. Again, he is in Legacies and plays kind of like a little puppy dog sort of character. Very young, very cute and charming, but also like a little bit of a troublemaker, which Scotty like kind of is when you really think about it. So that's who I'd cast for Reminders of Him. So this is part 2 of my fan casting books. Hopefully you guys liked it. Let me know your thoughts on any of what I shared, and let me know if there's any books you would like me to fan cast in my next installment if I do another one of these. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you have not already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!